Good morning, everybody. We are in John chapter 2 this morning, page 1022 in the scriptures. And on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Yeshua was there. The third day of what? We read John chapter 1, imagine that, last week. So if you want a little bit of context, you can go check that out. And by the way, we have New Testament and Old Testament playlists, starting in Matthew 1 in the New Testament and Genesis 1 in the Old Testament. So John chapter 2, and on the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Yeshua was there. And both Yeshua and his taught ones were invited to the wedding. So Yeshua was there with his apostles. And when they were short of wine, the mother of Yeshua said to him, "They have no wine." And Yeshua said to her, "Woman, what is that to me and to you? My hour has not yet come." What do you care if they got no wine? Why do I care they've got no wine? It's not my time to shine yet. And his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he says to you." Speaking of Yeshua. And there were 6 stone water jugs standing there, according to the mode of cleansing of the Yehudim, each holding 2 or 3 measures. The cleansing of the Yehudim, that's just there's 2 ways you clean things per the Torah, fire and water. And so, according to the matter of cleansing per the Yehudim, per the Jews, the Yehudi, that's that's how they were cleaning it. Now, liquid measures, according to the Messianic writings, aka the Second Testament, aka the New Testament, here in my scriptures in the back, it has a measure being anywhere between 10 and 30 gallons. So even at 10 gallons, if they got 2 to 3 measures each in them, these are big jugs. Okay, they're not little tiny things, they're big. There were 6 stone water jugs standing there according to the mode of cleansing of the Yehudim, each holding 2 or 3 measures. And Yeshua said to them, "Fill the water jugs with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw out and take it to the master of the feast." And so they took it. But when the master of the feast had tasted the water that had become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom. And he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when they have drunk, then that which is poorer. You have kept the good wine until now." I said, usually people put the good stuff out first, and then when people get a bit tipsy, they bring out the it's okay, because the maintenance beer, right? You see this a lot with people who party regularly. They got a 6-pack of good beer and then a 12-pack of they've got, we'll say, a 6-pack of whatever, I don't know, Guinness, some nice IPA, something like that, and then they've got a 12-pack of Miller Lite or, whatever, Coors. So, Yeshua's, or the master of the wedding is basically said the same thing. He's like, usually people put the IPAs out first and then switch to Miller Lite. You put the Miller Lite out first and then you brought the IPAs out. Good job. Verse 11. This, the beginning of the signs Yeshua did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, his esteem, and his taught ones believed in him. So this is the first of his signs, his wonders, right? And I think it's safe to say everybody has heard of this, the water into the wine. where do I want to go with this? And by the way, these are always completely unscripted. There are a lot of faiths and Christian denominations that drinking is not okay at all. And that's because it can lead to bad stuff. It can be abused, easily abused. As somebody who's done a lot of narcotics back in the day, I get it. So it's a self-control issue, and some people can control themselves in some things and not control themselves in others, and that's okay. I, for a long time, was the person that couldn't have one beer. I wanted one beer, then 6, then 12, then 24 beers. That's how I drank beer. I'm not that way anymore, praise Yah. You know, I couldn't have a glass of whiskey. I could have a bottle of whiskey. I'm not that way anymore, praise Yah. But I don't want to be around, for example, cocaine. I have zero interest in doing cocaine right now. Zero. But I also don't want to be in a situation where there is some, right? Because why even play that game? Not interested. I remember the day I quit doing coke. It was a Tuesday morning. I got up out of bed, put my feet on the floor. I was sitting up in bed, swung my feet off the bed onto the floor. My feet hit the floor. And my first coherent thought was, I'm out of coke. I need to get more coke. My next coherent thought was, it's Tuesday morning, you effing a-hole. No, you don't. And then I was like, oh, I have certainly got a problem. And we're talking with a guy right now that as a young man, in a short span of time, a couple years, blew all the proceeds of the sale of his first business, 1.4 million, essentially on cocaine and bourbon. So, I know how to party. I just don't anymore. Praise Yah. So if you can keep it under control, awesome. And that's the teaching in Leviticus 10 as well. Let's go there just briefly. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus 10. Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his fire holder and put fire in it, put incense in it, and brought strange fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from Yahweh and consumed them, and they died before Yahweh. Then Moshe said to Aaron, this is what Yahweh spoke. By those who come near me, let me be set apart. By those who come near me, let me be set apart. There's no sin in the presence of the Father. That's why we have a Messiah. It's a whole nother in-depth teaching for another time. But there's no sin in the presence of the Most High. So these guys were drunk. They were so drunk that they brought the wrong incense before Yah. Hey, son, give it a few minutes. When I'm done with this, you can do that. Okay? And before all the people, let me be esteemed, let me be glorified. And Aaron was silent. And Moshe called to Mishael and to Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, come near and take your brothers from before the set-apart place out of the camp. So they came near and took them by their long shirts out of the camp, and Moshe had said. And Moshe said to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar, his sons, do not unbind your heads nor tear your garments, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the people. So Moshe goes like immediately into fire control. He's like, here's how we're going to handle this. Aaron, suck it up. Yeah, 2 of your boys just got smoked by Yah. So we need your 2 other boys, drag them, or actually, hey, cousins, come here, cousins, drag them out by their shirts. Your 2 other sons, the 2 brothers of the 2 guys that just got smoked, do not lose it. Do not come unglued. Do not unbind your heads nor tear your garments, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the people. But let your brothers, all the house of Israel, bewail the burning which Yahweh has kindled. And do not go out from the door of the tent of appointment, lest you die, for the anointing of Yahweh is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moshe. And Yahweh spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tent of appointment, lest you die. A law forever throughout your generations. So as to make a distinction between the set apart, the holy, and the profane, and between the clean and the unclean, and to teach the children of Israel all the laws which Yahweh has spoken to them by the hand of Moshe. I.e., there is no drunkenness in service to Yahweh, so don't be doing that. There's no drunkenness in service to Yah. That is different than a wedding celebration where you know there's going to be some drinking. But drinking and drunkenness are 2 different things. Having a glass, having a couple of glasses, and keeping your mind about you and your wits about you is one thing. Slurring your words and being dangerously drunk regularly, whatever regularly looks like to you, is a problem. It's also, frankly, a stumbling block in a relationship with the Father. If you are clouded of mind regularly, you're not going to hear him, and he don't want to hear from you. We're commanded, be sober-minded. Says the guy who drinks whiskey on camera 6 days a week in the evenings delivering the bear reports. Yep. Because I'm not drunk. Nor do I intend to ever be drunk. I don't get drunk. And so there's the line there. All right, back to John chapter 2, verse 12. Page 1023. After this, he, Yeshua, went down to Kfar Nahum, he and his mother and his brothers and his taught ones, and there they stayed not many days. And the Pesach of the Yehudim was near, and Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. The Passover was near, and he found in the set-apart place those selling oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers sitting. I have a star next to this. Verse 15. And having made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the set-apart place, with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the money changers' coins, and overturned the tables. And he said to those selling doves, take these away. Do not make the house of my Father a house of merchandise. And his taught ones remembered that it was written, the ardor for your house has eaten me up. Psalm 69:9. And the Yehudim answered and said to him, what sign do you show us since you are doing these? And Yeshua answered and said to them, destroy this dwelling place, and in 3 days I shall raise it up. Then the Yehudim said, it took 46 years to build this dwelling place, and you're going to raise it in 3 days? Question mark. But he spoke about the dwelling place of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his taught ones remembered that he said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said. And when he was in Jerusalem at the Pesach, at the Passover, at the festival, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he was doing. But Yeshua, not entrusting himself to them, because he knew all men, and had no need that anyone should witness of man, for he knew what was in man. A lot going on here. The first is, he went down to Kefar Nahum, spent there for not many days, and then he went up to Jerusalem to observe the Passover. Now, some might argue, some will say, so we'll start here. First, Yeshua observed the Passover. Jesus kept the Passover. Period. The end. There it is. It's right there. John chapter 2. It's also in the Gospels. So he kept it more than once, repeatedly, elsewhere in the Gospels. The Last Supper was the Passover supper. How interesting that his first miracle was just prior to Passover, and then his death and resurrection was just after Passover, over a course of years. Pretty short period of time. We know he kept the Passover. There's multiple accounts. And in Torah, in the mouths of two or three shall everything be established. Well, there, it's established. He kept Passover. If we are going to be Christ-like, which, by the way, is what Christian means. Christios was the slang that the Greeks used to insult people. It was like calling somebody an MFer. It's like, you MFer. It's like, you Christios. You followers of Christ, the anointed. It means to be Christ-like. And we're sold this bill of goods by the modern Christian church, or at least some churches in the modern Christian church. I don't want to lump all churches into this because there are good churches. But a lot of churches in the modern Christian church sell this bill of goods that looks something like, no man can keep the law. The law is the law of sin and death. Christ came and died for our sins and offered forgiveness, and through him we now have righteousness and we live righteous lives. The end. And that's what it means to be a Christian. To which I said several years ago, if this is what it means to be a Christian, I don't want to be a Christian. Because Christianity, at least the Christianity that I've seen in a lot of places, is not biblical. It is doctrines and dogmas of man. I want to do what my Messiah did. I want to follow Yeshua. And I did. And I am. And it has led me here. And my life is so incredibly blessed that I'll make words for it. Deuteronomy 28. And I have been blessed by the Most High with the ability to wield so much power and authority in so many different facets of my life that I don't make words for it. I have seen many hundreds of amazing and wonderful things. I have received thousands of witnesses and testimonies to the glory and power of Yahweh or Elohim. Out of simply doing my broken best as a human being to walk with my Messiah, including the keeping of the commands, including the Moedim, Leviticus 23, the appointed times, which my Messiah clearly kept. And so some people will say, well, yeah, that was nailed to the cross and done away with, though. He had to do that while he was still alive, but we don't do that now. To which I would say, research the Greek word cheirographon, Cheirographon, cheirographon. And you tell me what cheirographon is, and then you explain to me what cheirographon is that was nailed to the stake, that's what was nailed to the stake. You explain to me how your understanding of cheirographon means that we don't do the law anymore. Because Corinthians 2:14, that's what was nailed to the cross. Cheirographon. And then you put that in context to Matthew 5:17, Matthew 7:21, John 14:15, 1 Peter 2 verse 21. Hebrews 8:6 through 12, Hebrews 10 verse 26. Revelation 12:17, Revelation 19:11. Put all that together as, rather than a little tiny snippet of a, oh, it was nailed to the cross and done away with. This whole book stands. All of it. And that was just New Testament references to the fallacy of chirograph, meaning the law has been done away with. To say nothing of the Old Testament teachings on that, and the fact that had Yeshua obliterated the law, he would not have fulfilled the messianic prophecies that made him the anointed of Yah in the first place, that made him the Christ in the first place. It's a real sticking point for the modern Christian church and replacement theology in general. You can't have Yeshua as Messiah and do away with the law. Doesn't work. That's not biblical. You know how they get around that? They don't teach that part of the Bible. And then people take their pastor's words for it, or whoever's words for it. You realize the revelation, the revealing of Yeshua Messiah, when he returns, is him returning as a king upon a white horse to judge the world in righteousness, which is blamelessly walking in all the commands of Yah. There's a lot of talk in Revelation about the remnant of the church being those that have a testimony of Yeshua and keep the commands. John had a vision revealing who Yeshua is, the revelation revealing. You should read Revelation, see who Yeshua is. See what's going to happen when he comes back, and ask, is that congruent with the teachings that I have received from my modern Christian church? Or is there something deeper here that I'm missing? So Yeshua kept the Pesach. We know this. It's inarguable. Yeshua also purposefully made a whip of cords and went to town on the people doing business in the church. What would Jesus do? He would make a whip of cords and utterly wreck a lot of modern churches. I have been in churches with coffee shops and bookstores and gift shops in the lobby outside the sanctuary, all open for business on Sunday morning. And in that same church, heard people complaining and running their mouths about what a piece of crap this church is, and I can't wait until we raise the $17 million to build the annex next door. And we're talking a 30,000 square foot building with offices and youth programs and an indoor full court basketball gym and an auditorium that seats 1,200 people, that does 3 services on Saturday evening service, and then 3 services on Sunday, and then 2 Spanish languages services in the gym each weekend. That has paid members of the worship team, that they're paid to get up there and be worshipful each week. And I'm not talking a few bucks, I'm talking a lot of bucks. That the pastor has to go on sabbatical to finish writing his book. Oh, I could keep going. This is one church. I've been to a lot like it. Yeshua would wreck that place. And he should, because that's not a church, it's a corporation. And going deeper from there, we know now the temple isn't here. And when you start doing things Yeshua's way, not the church's way, Yeshua's way, which is Yah's way. Remember this, it's not your way, it's Yahweh. okay? Don't do your things. Do his things. When you start doing that, you're gonna get your temple wrecked. Yeshua's gonna get up in your heart and he's going to do away with all that false teaching, with all that doctrine and dogma of man, with all the sin, with all the lies that we've been taught that we need to unlearn. And I mean, right now, for me, I'm in the midst of unleavened bread. And the whole concept of unleavened bread is you get the sin, the false teachings, the doctrines and dogmas of men out. You get rid of it. You question, why do we do these things? Are they biblical? Are they not biblical? Do they bring me closer to Yah? Do they bring me further away from Yah? Am I walking with Yeshua in this, or am I walking away from Yeshua in this, in these things that I do? So if you're walking with Yeshua, and you're new to walking with Yeshua, and you're getting your temple wrecked, sometimes you just gotta erase the whole chalkboard and start over. Sometimes you gotta burn the chalkboard down and build a new one. So if he gets up in your life and starts flipping tables and throwing people out by the neck and braiding corded whips to drive the bullshizer out of your life, count it a blessing, because what will be left after that will be a pure and clean temple for the Most High. Not for you, not for the other money changers in your life, but for the Most High, for Yah. And then we have this prophecy from Yeshua. He says, destroy this dwelling place, and in 3 days I shall raise it up. He's talking about being raised from the dead, the resurrection, and which of course points to the Feast of First Fruits, which for us is tomorrow, which I just discussed in the previous video that we'll post Friday evening, Deuteronomy 26, the Feast of First Fruits. And Yeshua is the first fruits of the resurrection for us. And so, and again, this whole Bible relates to each other, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's just constantly back and forth across that one narrow blank page in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It took 46 years to build this dwelling place, and you were going to raise it in 3 days. But Yeshua spoke about the dwelling place of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his taught ones remembered that he said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said. And when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover, at the festival, many believed in his name when they saw the signs he was doing. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one. Yeshua was at the Passover. Yeshua is the temple. All of these things point back to Yah. They are one. I don't know what else to say other than that. Have a blessed day, y'all. Shalom.